Yo guys, what's going on? Robert Warshak here, and we're going to be going over the most popular decks that you're going to be finding on ladders. So when you queue into ladder, you hit that ranked play button. What are you going to be seeing, 90-95% of the time when you go against some of these classes? I'm going to cover the deck, not necessarily each and every card, but, the broad strokes of what the deck does, what it's trying to accomplish, what makes it good. And from there, we're going to cover each and every class. Again, we probably won't cover every class. I believe Druid was left out because there is no really popular Druid class right now. And if one pops up, it'll be in the next monthly meta. So with that, let's take a look at it. First things first, we got Mage, Highlander Mage or Highlander Dragon Mage. Really solid deck in my opinion. A lot of people aren't playing Mage right now, but if you're playing against the Mage, it's almost always going to be some sort of Highlander Mage. I've opted a lot of people are playing the Dragon Highlander Mage because the dragons are new and they want to use the Dragon Queen AAECAaZ and the Malygos aspect and a couple Dragon synergy cards. What makes this deck good is it just has tools to be able to not only deal with minions, make a big board, be able to cheat spells out. Luna's Pocket Galaxy is still really good. It makes all your minions 1 mana, so playing a 1 mana Malygos or 0 mana Mountain Giant, being able to throw out an 1 mana AAECAaZ and bring your opponent to 15 for basically free is insane. So it has all of the things that old Highlander Mage has, plus it's got some new synergies and some new really powerful cards. And keep in mind, there is another rendition of this deck that runs a little bit less, I believe, dragons and a little bit more spells, so it opts to run like the Yogg-Box and the Polymorph. This is the version that I like. If you want to run the other version, that's fine, but the deck still functions exactly the same. So moving to Highlander Hunter, this deck, it does exactly what it did in the previous meta. It's very fast, and being able to basically play a 7 mana King Crush and hit your opponent for 8 is still really good. It just got a couple new tools to be able to clear minions and have a bigger late game. So again, all of the Highlander decks are going to play the new AAECAaZ card, which is absolutely just insane. It runs the new legendary Hunter Dragon card, which, Hunter's marks everything on your opponent's side of the field, which is really good. It also runs the other new legendary Dragon Bane, which every time you use your hero power, has a chance to do 5 damage to an enemy minion or their face, which is really insane. So the deck still functions exactly how it used to. It's just, in my opinion, more powerful. There is a more dragon rendition of this deck, and there's a more mech rendition. This is the more mech rendition. I was trying to get the dragon version of this deck to work, and I just couldn't get it to work how I wanted it to. The mech version and the version that we've seen previously just does a really good job. It's very consistent, and it does what it does, and it does it very well. And this is definitely, if you're more expensive Hunter deck, the other Hunter deck, however, on our list is much cheaper, and it very fast. This is going to be our budget Hunter list. For those of you who are wondering, this is slightly different than the list that we hit Legend with last month. We run Leper Gnomes instead of the Frost Traps, I believe. But this deck is still really good, very fast. Punishes Mage, punishes Warlocks, punishes basically any slow deck, any control deck that's very greedy. This deck just annihilates them. Plus, it's only 2,600 dust. If you're looking for a great budget deck, this is going to be your choice. I actually have 2 videos on this particular list, and you can check that in the videos prior. I might even throw some links in there. But yeah, we actually hit Legend with a very similar list to this, and for less than 3k dust, and a deck that, is basically win or lose by turn 5 or 6. If you don't have a lot of time on your hands and you're just trying to spam Hearthstone games while you go to the bathroom, this is the deck for you. Moving along to Priest, this is going to be the Quest Priest. This is a very annoying deck. So for those of you who love control decks and love grindy games, this deck is very powerful. It pries on a lot of the other sort of mid-range to control decks. It also does very well against aggressive style decks because of the fact that not only it has a ton of taunts, it has a lot of healing. The passive of course, the Priest hero power is healing. This is just a super control deck. The games are going to be a lot slower with this one, but this deck is really annoying. So I don't know for those of you who love annoying decks, but I hate playing against Priest right now because this is just one of those decks, but it's really good. So anybody who's wanting to play a really good sort of control Priest deck, this is the deck for you. And it's a little bit more expensive in comparison to the deck that we just covered, the Hunter deck, which is like less than 3k dust, and now we're looking at 12k dust. But when you play some of these more popular deck guides, these are some of the best. The reason that they're so popular is because they're the best decks. So if you're wondering why a lot of these decks are expensive, it's because these are the best decks. If you're wanting budget decks, I have a whole other video section on budget decks where I post a lot of these, top tier decks, but I also budget them down where they cost less than 3k dust for the most part. Taking a look at some Warlock, we've got the Malygos Handlock. It's good to see a nice control Warlock enter the mix, especially with it using Malygos. It looks like this deck would be really funky. It's like, how does it win? It's got this burst package with Malygos and Soulfires and the new Nether Breath, but it also has a lot of value cards like the Abyssal Summoner, the Alexstrasza, the Fell Gorge, the Mountain Giants. So every time I play against this deck, I feel like I'm winning, and then I feel like I'm losing, and then I feel like I'm winning, and then ultimately I end up losing because I'm at 15 life. They play Malygos, and then they go ahead and like Soulfire me, or they have a discounted Malygos because of the Frizz, and then they go ahead and double Soulfire me. I don't know. This deck is very high skill cap. This Warlock deck is probably, I mean, I've tried playing it. It's a hard deck to play, but it's a very rewarding deck to play. And it's a very good deck to play for those of you who are wanting a sense of like a handlock or a control Warlock. You don't always have to run the Malygos package. There's other more control variants of the deck that runs the new Legendary Dragon Warlock card along with Draxus and things of that nature. I've actually built me one of those. That was one of the first decks we played. So if you're looking for a nice one that doesn't run a lot of these dragons but is very control-y, that would be one of the first Warlock decks we posted. But overall, this is a very powerful deck. Again, does a shit ton of damage in one turn, and it has the ability to out control. So moving to a newer kind of Zoo Galakron Warlock. This is a very fun deck. This is my rendition of the deck. We made a couple videos on it. It performed very, very well. There's quite a few different versions of it, but all of them kind of do the same thing. It's a Zoo package meshed in there with the Invoke package. And what I like about this deck a lot is the fact that you basically have things to do from the early game all the way into the late games, and it feels like you just never run out of value. Every turn you're doing something really cool, whether it's being able to curve out with like Flame Imps and Voidwalkers and Evil Cable Rats and Evil Geniuses. You have the Lackey package in there, so you have the Dark Pharaoh, which is like a whole nother win condition. Then you have the Invoke package, which generates a lot of the Imps for you, which allows you to swarm the board and get really big Grim Rallies. You also have the ability to go, of course, Galakron in the later stages to summon a whole bunch of demons and win with the weapon. You also have Shuma and Sea Giant, which again floods the board or puts a big in 8/8 on there because it's really easy to make minions in this deck because all of the minions either generate other minions, our Invoke generates minions, our Lackeys are really small minions that possibly generate other minions. So you can kind of see how well this deck synergizes all together. And for those of you looking for some sort of like, this is not a hyper aggressive deck. This is more of a tempo or mid-range deck in my opinion. And it has the ability to keep up with the faster decks, but it also has the ability to go toe-to-toe with a lot of the control decks. Moving to Warrior, we have the Galakron Invoke Warrior. This deck, for some reason, I can't play this deck and do really well with it, but it's a really popular deck. A ton of people are playing this. This is probably more popular than the Pirate Warrior version of the aggressive style Warrior deck. Was this Invoke package? I mean, a lot of people are playing it, have a lot of success with it. It's a very fast-paced deck. It revolves around playing minions, playing invokes, hitting your opponent in the face. Very similar. It feels very similar to like the Face Hunter deck. Like, because the invoke gives you the ability to basically swing your hero at your opponent or kill off other minions, you're just building onto the board and trading into stuff or going face. You do a shit ton of damage in this later stage of the game when you play Galakron, and it gives minions +4/+4, and it hits like, Restless Mummies and Korkrons. You're just swinging in with giant minions from the hand for like 3 to 4 mana that are like 8 attack plus the Scions plus Galakron. So, I mean, this deck, when I play against it, it feels insane. When I play it, I can't get it to work. I'm sure we'll have some success with it later because I'm sure I'm piloting it wrong. But really popular Warrior deck, really, really good. Taking a look at some Pirate Warrior. I didn't think this would be a deck that would come back, but it did. It's, in my opinion, not as strong as the old Pirate Warrior. If it was, we would see a lot more of it, but it still is a popular Warrior deck. I would have to say like 25% of the time it's Pirates, 75% of the time it's the Invoke. It does the same thing the old Pirate Warrior used to do. Plays Pirates early on, plays a weapon, buffs the weapon, goes face to the weapon, goes face with the Pirates. Hopefully you're dead by turn like 5 or 6. It's got a couple new key features. The Horde Pillager, when you lose a weapon, it's able to go ahead and replace one that has died. So it replacing Livewire, Lance, and Arcanite Reaper is really, really good. There's some versions that do run Galakron, but then it's not. You either, in my opinion, you want to run Pirates or you want to run Galakron. If you're running Galakron and Pirates, you're kind of doing too many things, in my opinion. The ones that I've seen have the most success are either run straight Pirates or straight Galakron, and that's why the two decks that I presented to you were separated. It also runs the new Sky Barge, so every time you play a pirate, it has the chance to do 2 damage to an enemy minion in their face, which is insane because for 3 mana at 2/5 in stats is crazy powerful, and it just curves out really well. Also, Ankar's insane, being able to attack, draw a pirate, every single turn. So like, not only are you doing damage or killing minions, you're drawing a pirate out of your deck every single turn, and a lot of these pirates synergize with the weapon, so it's just crazy. Moving to everybody's favorite, just kidding, we have Gala Shaman. Even though this deck did receive a couple nerfs, it's still out there. It still does really, really well. Like, even though the Corrupted Elementalist got hit and the early game Murloc got hit, like I said, a lot of people are still playing with it. The deck still has a ton of success. The power of the Galakron, you know, the 2 8/8s with Rush, the 5/2 weapon that most of the time can be curved out, played on turn 7 very, like, easily. Then they follow that up with a Shudder, which summons 2 more 8/8s, gets another weapon, summons a field full of shit, generates lackeys. I mean, it's just crazy, right? And the deck just, this is a very easy deck. Like, it's not a hard deck to play. It's easy. It just does what it does. It does it really well. It's kind of hard to ignore that. Taking a look at some rogue decks, rogues actually have the most viable, different sort of decks at the moment. We have a Highlander Death Rattle rogue deck here. This is one of my favorite decks to play, and it just has so many different, it's a very high skill ceiling deck. There's a ton of options each and every game. It has the ability to beat out aggro decks. It has the ability to beat out mid-range decks, and it has the ability to beat out control decks. In my opinion, it's one of the most fun of the Highlander decks to play, because rogue has a ton of different renditions of rogue you can play. It's a good safe craft in my opinion right now, just because most of these cards fit into other builds of the rogue that are also very good. What makes this deck good is it of course runs all of the Highlander cards, so looking at Zephyrus, looking at the Alexstrasza, but it also of course has the new Galakron card, which allows, you know, you draw minions and they cost 0. There's a lot of very hefty minions in this deck, so making them cost 0 is quite nice. Moving to the Death Rattle version of this rogue deck, this is my least favorite deck to play against on ladder, right next to Priest, and that's because all this deck is a high roll deck. It's really good like 30 to 40% of the time when you get Apothecary between the turn, like, you know, 3 and 6. If you can coin Apothecary and it hits Warbringer, you kind of just win those games. It's a deck that has a bunch of shitty cards in it, and then you play Apothecary, it hits Warbringer, you buff your hand, and then you win the game because you have a bunch of, you know, 0 mana 4/4 Wisps. You have a bunch of South Sea deckhands. You know, you have 1 mana 5/4s with Charge. You've got Vicious Scalehide, which turned into 4/6 Rush with Lifesteal. And of course you have Anka, which then, because you draw a Warbringer, you play Anka, and the Warbringer, you know, dies again because it costs 1 mana, buffs your hand even more, and Faceless Corruptor, because it splits into 2, and it's got the buff, you get, you know, giant, you know, Faceless Corruptors that are like 8/8s and 11/11s and things like that. But the times where you don't draw, you know, the Apothecary in this deck, your hand is just literal garbage. So that's why you see a lot of Novice Engineer, a lot of Alkali to Pain, a lot of draw in the early stages, so you can get that Apothecary to be able to use these cards and combo them together and cheat out a bunch of tiny little relentless buff fucking minions. Like, Apothecary feels like Barnes on 4. The reason I don't mind it in the Highlander deck is because there's only one Apothecary, and there's one Whelp, and there's one Warbringer, and the deck isn't revolving around this Apothecary. It's just one of the things that make it good. This deck, it is completely and utterly, it only revolves around Apothecary. Don't think that's healthy, but it is a very powerful deck. A lot of people are playing it, and it would be I can't not put it in there just because I don't like it, but I can tell you that I don't like it, but I'm still going to show it to you. Moving to the Tempo rogue deck, the other version of this deck. The version that I like most, out of like the Death Rattle one, I obviously don't like, and then this one I like a lot more because it runs the Mechanical Whelp, which is a lot cooler. You get a 7/7 out of the deal. You're not cheesing your opponent out with a bunch of, you know, 0 mana 4/4s and 1 5/4s with Charge and whatnot. You're actually winning the game because you know, you're playing 7/7s. They're trading. They're going face, and the deck is good on top of being able to do the Mechanical Whelp. Like, this deck can completely and utterly win by itself without getting Apothecary. It totally has the ability to do so, and I've actually modified this deck list even past now me making this video. I added in Karen instead of Togwoggle, and I took out an SI Agent and put another Life Drinker. So if you want to make those changes, you can. It runs very, very similar to Tempo Rogue. So if you like Tempo Rogue and it has a little Death Rattle spice in there, this is the deck for you, and the version of the deck that I like the most, along with the Highlander. Taking a look at some Paladin. So this deck has been around for a while now. I'm not going to cover too much. It's the OTK Shirvala Paladin. For those of you who don't know how this deck works, well, first let's cover Sathravar. It's what makes this deck really, really powerful. You go ahead and play Shirvala for 0 mana because you played a bunch of spells. You Sathravar Shirvala, adds 1 to your hand, adds another 1 to the field, adds another 1 to your deck, which allows you to not only heal, clear the board, add more Shirvalas to your deck. It's just a huge power swing. It's insane. But how you normally win is you go ahead and you play Shirvala for 0 mana. You have no cards left in your deck. You Baleful Banker Shirvala, back into your deck for 2 mana, and then you go ahead and Holy Wrath your opponent. Because Shirvallah technically costs 25 mana, but it's only been reduced because of spells, Holy Wrath still targets it for 25. You target that on your opponent's face. Again, with the Holy Wrath, you hit your opponent for 25. If that doesn't kill them, which most of the time it does, you go ahead and do another 25 the following turn. It also runs Zephyrus, so as you have no cards left in your deck, because this whole point of this deck is to draw a bunch of cards, heal a bunch of shit, stay alive, then kill your opponent with this burst damage. The Zephyrus allows you to generate cards like Pyroblast, Tyrion, and Fireballs, which kind of allow you to go over the 50 damage that you normally can do with the Holy Wrath. So not only your opponent have to deal with the 50 burst, they've got to deal with Tyrions and Fireballs and things like that. So deck's really good. It focuses on beating other control decks and heavily aggro decks because it has a lot of healing, and it basically just clears the board and kills your opponent. Like if your opponent's playing a priest deck, like they don't do anything the whole game. They play like 2 attack minions, 3 attack minions. They heal themselves. You just don't do any damage to them because you don't need to, because you're just going to kill them in one turn with the Holy Wrath, you know, Zephyrus combo. So you just keep clearing the board. Their minions don't do a lot of damage, and then you just kill them in one turn. So this counters the priests. This counters, you know, all those kind of decks that really don't do anything all game but clear and play really small minions that have taunt. So for those of you who are interested in how to destroy priest, here you go. And with that, that is all of the decks that we're going to cover. If I happen to miss out on any of the decks that you think should have been in here, let me know in the comment section below. I tried to cover the ones I'm seeing the most. Again, if you're like, hey, Rob, why don't you play the Dragon Control Warrior? It's a good deck. It may be a good deck, but it's not the most popular deck. I want to cover the decks that, you know, when you queue into ladder, you're going to see these 90 to 95% of the time, and you can get a good idea. And I want to give that to you as fast as possible and not cover everything, because that's not as important as what is the most popular. So with that, hopefully you've enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Of course, I'm Robert Warshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.